All right, everyone, get ready. Because today we are going deep into Supermicro.
The company that's making waves in the AI server market.
Yeah, you know them. They've kind of exploded.
Exploded is right.
Yeah.
Their market cap is something like $35 billion now.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And, they're riding this whole AI boom.
Yeah, supplying a lot of the hardware for all this AI development.
But as with any company that grows this fast,
Right.
got to take a closer look.
Absolutely.
And we've got some research here, including this report from Hindenburg Research. And, well, things get a little interesting.
Oh, interesting is putting it lightly.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they're raising some serious red flags about Supermicro's business practices.
So it's more than just, typical tech industry growing pains.
Oh, yeah, we're talking potential accounting tricks, questionable deals with family members, even whispers of sanctions evasion.
Okay, whoa, that's a lot to unpack.
It is.
So let's break this down.
Okay.
First up, accounting.
Right.
The report keeps using this term channel stuffing.
Yeah.
What is that?
Okay, so imagine a store trying to make their sales look amazing right before a big report comes out.
Oh, okay.
What they could do is ship a ton of stuff to their warehouses, even if nobody's ordered it, and count that as a sale.
Oh, sneaky.
Yeah, and that's basically what channel stuffing is. Artificially pumping up those numbers to make it look like there's way more demand than there actually is.
And the problem with that is?
Well, it's misleading, it's unsustainable, and it can catch up to you.
And Supermicro has a history with this.
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh.
Back in 2018, they were actually delisted from the NASDAQ.
What? Really?
For failing to file their financial statements on time, which, that's a huge red flag right there.
Big red flag.
Huge. And then in 2020, the SEC actually charged them with accounting violations.
Oh, wow.
To the tune of over $200 million.
Wow, and they settled.
They did, yeah, for $17.5 million.
But the big question is,
did they learn their lesson?
did they learn their lesson? Because Hindenburg seems to think they went right back to their old ways.
Exactly. There was a lawsuit this year alleging that Supermicro started bending the rules again
When?
just 3 months after that SEC settlement.
Oh, wow.
So if that's true, that's a massive problem for anyone who's believing these financial reports.
Right, because it's not just numbers on a page.
Yep.
This report includes some pretty shocking accounts from former employees.
Right. Imagine working in sales and being told to ship products based on completely made-up demand forecasts just to hit your quotas.
Made up. Wow.
Yeah, or you complete a partial shipment just to boost the numbers, and then you come up with some excuse for why the rest of the order hasn't shipped yet.
Oh.
And that's what some former employees are alleging.
So it's like a culture of pressure
It sounds like it.
leading to some shady tactics.
Yeah.
They were playing this game of smoke and mirrors, hoping that nobody would look too closely.
And to make matters worse, they brought back some of the executives who were involved in that previous accounting scandal.
Wait, really?
Yeah, including the former CFO, Howard Hideshima,
The one
who was personally charged by the SEC.
So they rehired the guy at the center of the whole mess.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He ended up going to work for a company
Really?
owned by Supermicro CEO's brother.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
That brings us to our next red flag. The tangled web of related parties.
Right.
Because the report paints a pretty, cozy picture, too cozy of a picture,
Yeah.
between Supermicro and companies controlled by the CEO's family.
Mhm.
And we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars flowing to these related parties.
Yeah.
So what's going on there?
So Supermicro gives components to these family-owned companies, they assemble them, and then sell them right back to Supermicro.
It's like a shell game.
Kinda.
So is this legitimate value add? Or is it a way to obscure costs and maybe even, funnel profits?
It's the million-dollar question.
Because it all seems a bit too convenient.
Right. And it's almost impossible to tell for sure because there's a serious lack of transparency here.
Yeah.
These related parties seem to do almost no business outside of Supermicro.
At all.
Very little, which is incredibly suspicious.
So are they truly independent companies, or are they basically just extensions of Supermicro, designed to make the books look a certain way?
It's a good question. And then there's this whole thing about Supermicro's liquid cooling technology.
Oh, yeah, the one that they've been bragging about as their secret weapon.
Right. It's supposed to revolutionize the industry.
Right.
But the report suggests that this technology might actually be designed by a related party company called Abelcom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is controlled by the CEO's brother and is partially owned by the CEO and his wife.
Wait, so they're taking credit for something that their family members design and they're not even disclosing that?
It seems that way.
That's wild.
It is, and without that disclosure, it's impossible to know if Supermicro was even getting a fair deal on this supposedly groundbreaking technology.
Right. So this whole situation,
Yeah.
it raises some big concerns
Absolutely.
about conflict of interest. Whether Supermicro is actually putting their shareholders first. So we've got potential accounting shenanigans,
Right.
a web of questionable related party deals.
Yeah.
Where do we even go from here?
Well, let's talk about Supermicro's customers, because despite their dominance in this AI server market, it seems like they're struggling to hold on to their clients.
Really, I would think with the AI boom, going full force, they would be just drowning in orders.
You would think so, but there's a common thread that's emerging from former employees and industry insiders, and it's that Supermicro's Achilles heel is their after-sales service.
Really?
They're known for cutting corners and leaving customers in the lurch when things go wrong.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And this is coming back to bite them now.
Big time. We're talking major players like CoreWeave and Tesla, who were once all in on Supermicro,
Wow.
now shipping their business to Dell.
Dell, wasn't it NVIDIA's CEO who said that...
Who said that Dell was the best?
Yeah, the best in the business.
He did. Jensen Huang himself said nobody's better at building end-to-end systems at a very large scale than Dell.
And it seems like Supermicro's customers are kind of noticing that.
They are.
So what's driving this shift? Are they saying that Supermicro servers are unreliable?
Well, the report is packed with anecdotes from employees at companies like DigitalOcean, Genesis Cloud, GMI Cloud, all describing serious service issues and reliability problems
Oh, wow.
that push them to find other suppliers.
Can you give me an example? Like, what kind of problems are we talking about?
Well, one employee at Genesis Cloud,
Okay.
which is a company that Supermicro boasts about as a success story on our website, this employee called their experience catastrophic.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, they had a 10% failure rate on their Supermicro servers, and they ran into firmware bugs that had been known for months, but were never communicated to them.
Wow, that's a far cry from a success story.
Right. And then another employee at GMI Cloud talked about a 17.5% problem rate
17.5.
on their order of 256 servers.
That's huge.
It is. And they said the cost savings they thought they were getting with Supermicro completely vanished when they factored in all the headaches and delays.
So it's like the old saying, you get what you pay for.
Pretty much. And when it comes to AI servers, which are the backbone of so many critical systems, reliability and support are absolutely essential.
Absolutely.
And Supermicro seems to be dropping the ball on both of those fronts.
So we've got potential accounting issues, questionable family deals, now customers jumping ship.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? This is starting to sound like a house of cards.
Well, there's one more layer to this story, and it's potentially the most concerning of all. The report digs into allegations of sanctions evasion and some pretty shady partnerships.
Ooh.
That raise some serious ethical and legal questions about how Supermicro operates.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting because Supermicro has a history with, export regulations, right?
They do. Back in 2006, they actually pleaded guilty to exporting banned components to Iran. And their CEO kind of blamed it on inexperience and said, oh, we learned our lesson.
Sure.
But their actions since then kind of tell a different story.
What happened? They got caught doing something similar again.
Well, after Russia invaded Ukraine, the U.S. imposed these really strict sanctions on high-tech exports.
Yeah.
Especially anything that had to do with, like, high-performance computers.
Right.
Because those components could be used for weapons development or military intelligence.
Oh, wow.
And Supermicro said they were complying with the sanctions, right?
They said they were following the rules.
They claimed to have stopped all sales to Russia.
Okay.
And they even said that they hadn't made any money from Russia since the day before the war started.
Wow.
But the report paints a very different picture.
So they were secretly selling to Russia?
Hindenburg analyzed these import-export records.
Okay.
And found that exports of Supermicro's high-tech components to Russia have actually tripled since the invasion.
So they were saying one thing and doing something totally different behind the scenes.
Exactly.
So how are they getting these components into Russia then?
It gets pretty complicated. They were using newly formed Turkish shell companies.
Oh, wow.
Involving businesses that are already on U.S. government watch lists.
Really?
And even this California distributor, who seems to be connected to a major Russian client.
This is starting to sound like a spy thriller.
I know, right?
Like, are we sure we're talking about a server company here?
But the implications for Supermicro are huge here.
Yeah.
They're facing potential legal action, damage to their reputation, and possibly even more sanctions
Wow.
from the U.S. government.
It's a dangerous game they're playing.
Very dangerous.
And it's not just Russia. The report also raises concerns about Supermicro's joint venture with a Chinese state-run company called FiberHome.
Yeah.
What's the issue with that?
So FiberHome has been implicated in human rights abuses against the Uyghur minority in China.
Oh.
The U.S. government actually put them on a watch list back in 2020 because of their role in the repression of Uyghurs.
And Supermicro is still doing business with them.
Yes. The report says they've sold almost $200 million worth of components to this joint venture.
Since when?
Since their Chinese partner was placed on that watch list.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we've got potential accounting manipulation, shady family deals, customer dissatisfaction, and now possible sanctions violations and partnerships with companies linked to human rights abuses.
That's a lot.
That's a lot to take in.
It is.
And it raises, like, a fundamental question.
Yeah.
In this age of AI, where technology is evolving so rapidly, how much scrutiny should companies like Supermicro actually face?
That's the question.
Are we willing to overlook, like, potential ethical and legal compromises just for the sake of progress?
It's something to think about.
Yeah, these are important questions to consider.
Absolutely.
And we're just getting started.
We are.
We've only scratched the surface of this Supermicro story.
There's a lot more to uncover.
When we come back, we'll dive deeper into some of these allegations, we'll examine the evidence, and we'll try to understand what this all means for Supermicro and the future of the entire AI industry.
It's going to be fascinating.
It is.
Can't wait.
Me neither. Stick with us.
Welcome back.
So this Supermicro story,
It's a fascinating one.
it's a lot more complex than I expected going into this.
Yeah, it really goes beyond just one company's practices, though.
What do you mean?
I mean, it makes you think about this whole ethical and legal minefield that comes with developing AI.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, AI is changing so much about our lives already.
I know, it's everywhere.
Healthcare, finance,
Transportation.
even just like how we get around.
It's amazing, and it's only going to get more powerful.
Exactly. And as it gets more powerful, the stakes get higher, right?
Absolutely. We need to make sure it's being developed responsibly.
We can't just ignore the potential downsides.
Exactly. We need to be asking tough questions about where these AI systems come from, who's building them, what compromises might be made along the way.
Let's circle back to those alleged sanctions violations.
Oh, yeah, the Russia stuff.
Yeah, the report claims that Supermicro was sending components to Russia through this web of shell companies and shady intermediaries, some even on U.S. government watch lists.
Yeah.
Seems incredibly risky, given the current, global climate.
It's incredibly audacious.
Really?
Yeah, and it gets even more complicated when you look at the types of components involved.
Okay.
The report says that almost 2/3 of Supermicro's exports to Russia since the invasion are what the government calls high-priority components.
High priority, what does that mean?
Okay, so these are components that the U.S. government has specifically flagged as having the potential to be used for military purposes by Russia.
Oh, wow.
We're talking the building blocks for advanced computing systems that could be used in everything from weapons development to surveillance to, like, battlefield intelligence.
So this isn't just, like, any old computer part.
No, this is serious stuff.
So are they saying that Supermicro could be indirectly supporting Russia's war efforts?
That's the concern. And remember, they're doing this while publicly claiming to have cut off all ties with Russia.
Right.
So it's just a blatant disregard for U.S. sanctions and a potential legal nightmare.
The report even mentions a specific example involving a company called Niagara Computers.
Yeah, I read about them.
They supply equipment for one of Russia's largest supercomputers at a research center that's now under U.S. sanctions.
Right.
What's the connection to Supermicro?
Well, guess who their main supplier is for those high-tech components?
Supermicro.
Supermicro. Initially, they were routing these sales through a distributor in California, but then they shifted to 3 brand new Turkish shell companies,
Wow.
one of which has since been sanctioned for smuggling restricted items to Russia.
So it sounds like they were trying to cover their tracks.
Yeah, for sure.
But why go through all that trouble? Like, why not just cut ties with Russia altogether?
It's hard to say for sure. Maybe they thought they could fly under the radar, or maybe the potential profits were just too tempting to resist.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason, it's a risky move that could backfire spectacularly.
The report claims that this California distributor is actually run by the same person who heads up Niagara Computers in Russia.
It's a very cozy relationship, to say the least.
That seems like an awfully big coincidence.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder if Supermicro was knowingly facilitating these exports to Russia, even though there were sanctions in place, and the potential for military use was clear.
Okay, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about that joint venture with the Chinese company FiberHome.
Okay.
We touched on this earlier.
Right.
But the report goes into detail about their alleged involvement in human rights abuses against the Uyghurs in China.
This is where things get really unsettling. FiberHome plays a key role in China's surveillance and telecommunications infrastructure.
Oh.
And they've been directly linked to the Chinese government's crackdown on the Uyghurs, a Muslim minority group in Xinjiang province.
We're talking about mass detention, forced labor, even reports of torture, right?
It's a horrific situation.
It is.
And it raises some serious ethical questions about Supermicro's decision to partner with a company that is so deeply implicated in these abuses.
So Supermicro has defended their involvement by saying that the joint venture itself isn't on the U.S. government watch list, even though their Chinese partner is.
Right.
Does that argument hold any weight?
It's a weak defense, to be honest. The U.S. government has made its concerns about FiberHome crystal clear.
Yeah.
And Supermicro knows exactly what's going on, and yet they continue to supply them with sophisticated technology, knowing how it might be used.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
It is.
The report also mentions that some of Supermicro's lenders, including big names like Bank of America and HSBC, seem to have a different view of this joint venture.
Yeah, they actually changed their credit agreement with Supermicro.
Oh, wow.
To specifically prevent their loans from being used to support this joint venture.
So they're not touching it.
They want nothing to do with it.
Really?
It's a huge red flag.
Wow.
It means that these financial institutions, who are normally all about the bottom line, are so uncomfortable with the risks involved that they're willing to take a stand.
So it seems like Supermicro is walking a tightrope here,
They are.
trying to balance their desire for profit with their obligations to comply with sanctions and uphold human rights.
They're definitely playing a dangerous game. And if they make one wrong move,
Yeah.
the consequences could be disastrous.
Yeah.
They could face legal action, lose key customers and partners, just suffer irreparable damage to their reputation.
The report also points out that this joint venture recently won a bid to supply equipment to the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps.
Yeah, I saw that.
Who are they and why is that significant?
The XPCC, or the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, is a paramilitary organization that's directly involved in the repression of Uyghurs in Xinjiang.
Oh, wow.
They run the prisons and forced labor camps where Uyghurs are detained and abused.
And they've been under U.S. sanctions since 2020.
Right, which means that American companies are forbidden from doing business with them.
So Supermicro's joint venture could be providing technology that's being used to facilitate human rights abuses.
That's the horrifying implication. The report doesn't specify the exact equipment or its intended use.
Right.
But the fact that a joint venture, partially owned by Supermicro, won this bid is deeply troubling.
This whole situation raises some fundamental questions about the responsibilities of companies working in AI, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
I mean, AI is a powerful tool,
It is.
and it's essential that we develop it and deploy it responsibly.
100%.
And that means thinking about the ethical implications, being transparent about how it's being used, and holding companies accountable for their actions.
Transparency and accountability, that's
Yeah, we can't just turn a blind eye to potential human rights abuses or sanctions violations just because it's being done in the name of, technological progress.
Exactly. We need to demand more from companies like Supermicro.
What do you mean?
We need greater transparency, accountability, a genuine commitment to ethical business practices.
Yeah, because the future of AI kind of depends on it.
I think it does.
Okay, let's switch gears again and talk about those customers who are raising concerns about Supermicro's product quality and service.
Right.
Because it sounds like their experiences can't be ignored.
You're right. These are companies on the front lines of the AI revolution. They are depending on this technology to innovate and solve really complex problems.
Right.
And when they start having serious issues with reliability, support, even basic functionality, that's a major warning sign.
Let's get specific. The report mentions CoreWeave, which was Supermicro's biggest customer last year, has started buying servers from Dell.
I know, that's a pretty big deal.
That seems like a big deal.
CoreWeave is a major player in the cloud computing space, and their decision to diversify their suppliers suggests they're not completely happy with Supermicro.
Right, it's a vote of no confidence.
Basically.
And it's not just CoreWeave.
No.
The report says that Tesla, another one of Supermicro's biggest customers,
Yeah.
has also started buying from Dell.
That's another major blow. Tesla is known for their high standards and their just relentless pursuit of innovation.
Right.
And if they're not satisfied with Supermicro's products or service, it speaks volumes.
Then there's the story of DigitalOcean, this cloud service provider, who actually switched a major order from Supermicro to Dell
I read about that.
after a string of, reliability problems.
They called their experience with Supermicro a train wreck.
A train wreck.
They said it was plagued by reliability issues, poor communication, just couldn't get the level of support and stability that they needed.
So it's a cautionary tale.
Absolutely, for anyone considering Supermicro.
The report even mentions that Amazon AWS, one of the giants of the cloud computing world, was an early customer of Supermicro,
Oh, wow.
but eventually stopped working with them.
That's very telling. Amazon is famous for their rigorous standards and their relentless pursuit of efficiency.
Yeah.
And if they decided to walk away from Supermicro, it raises some serious questions about their capabilities.
So it seems like Supermicro is facing a growing exodus of customers who are fed up with product quality issues and subpar service.
They are, and it's happening at the worst possible time.
How so?
Well, as competition in this AI server market is heating up,
Oh, right. Yeah.
companies like Dell, HP, Lenovo, they're pouring resources into this space, offering cutting-edge products and top-notch support.
So Supermicro could be left in the dust if they don't get their act together.
Absolutely. They need to prioritize quality control, revamp their after-sales service, and demonstrate a genuine commitment to customer satisfaction.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they risk losing even more market share to their competitors.
The report suggests that this poor after-sales service is a recurring theme. It's not just a few isolated incidents.
Yeah, it's not just a few bad apples.
Yeah.
Former employees described a company culture that prioritizes sales and hitting those quarterly numbers above all else,
Oh, wow.
even if it means neglecting customer support.
Oof.
Yeah, one former salesperson even said that Supermicro's sales team hated selling their on-site services
Really?
because they knew that the company would never live up to its promises.
That's pretty damning.
It's not good. It sounds like a systemic problem.
It does.
And it suggests that Supermicro needs a major cultural shift.
What do you mean?
Well, they need to invest in training, resources, and a real commitment to resolving customer issues quickly and effectively.
Yeah.
Otherwise, their reputation will continue to suffer.
So we've got potential accounting manipulation,
Right.
questionable dealings with family members,
Yeah.
sanctions evasion, partnerships with companies linked to human rights abuses,
Yes.
and a growing number of unhappy customers.
It's a lot to digest.
What does all of this mean for investors?
It's a complicated situation, but the risks are clear. Investors need to weigh these allegations carefully against Supermicro's potential for growth in the AI market.
Yeah.
It's a high-stakes gamble.
It sounds like a classic case of high risk, high reward.
Exactly, and it's crucial to remember that even if Supermicro manages to weather this storm, the damage to their reputation could be lasting.
Right.
It might take years to rebuild trust with customers, partners, and investors.
This is a story with many layers, and it's likely to keep evolving in the coming months.
Oh, it certainly will. We'll be watching closely and keeping you updated as new developments emerge.
When we come back, we'll take a closer look at Supermicro's financials, examining their revenue recognition practices and analyzing their relationships with those related party companies. We'll also explore what steps, if any, they've taken to address these concerns and what the potential legal and reputational fallout might be. Stay with us.
Welcome back, everyone, for the final part of our deep dive into Supermicro.
We've uncovered a lot of pretty unsettling information
We have.
about their business practices.
Yeah, from potential accounting tricks to those questionable overseas dealings.
Right.
So now let's zoom in on their financials.
Yep.
See if we can make sense of what's really going on behind the numbers. Because on the surface, their financials look incredible, right?
They do.
They've been riding this AI wave, explosive revenue growth.
Yeah.
But as we've been discussing, there are serious questions about whether this growth is sustainable and if their accounting practices are giving us the whole picture.
Let's go back to channel stuffing.
Okay.
That tactic we discussed earlier, because the Hindenburg report suggests that Supermicro might be using it again
Right.
to artificially inflate their sales.
It wouldn't surprise me.
So remind us how that works.
Okay, so imagine you're running a lemonade stand
Okay.
and you want to impress your parents with how much lemonade you sold.
Okay.
What you could do is make a ton of lemonade and send it to all your friends' houses, even if they didn't ask for it.
Ah, sneaky.
Yeah, and that's essentially what channel stuffing is, pushing products onto distributors, even if there's no real demand, just to book those sales and make the revenue look better.
So you're creating the illusion of success.
Exactly.
But it's built on a shaky foundation.
Right. It's not real demand.
And Supermicro has been accused of this before.
Yes. Back in 2018, the SEC charged them with accounting violations, including over $200 million in improperly recognized revenue.
They settled that.
They did.
But this new report alleges they might have gone back to their old tricks.
Just 3 months later.
3 months.
3 months after that settlement.
That's concerning.
It is.
Makes you wonder if they ever truly changed their ways.
Yeah. Makes you wonder about the culture there.
What about those related party transactions that we talked about?
Right.
The report highlights how Supermicro has been sending hundreds of millions of dollars to companies controlled by the CEO's family.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah, what's the potential impact on their financials?
Well, this is where things get murky. Supermicro provides components to these family-run companies who then assemble them and sell them right back to Supermicro.
It's like this financial roundabout.
It is.
You can't tell who's doing what.
And it's impossible to tell if Supermicro is getting a fair deal because there's just very little transparency.
It almost feels like they're trying to hide something.
It does, yeah, by making these transactions so convoluted.
And remember that liquid cooling technology Supermicro has been boasting about.
Oh yeah, the one they claim is their secret weapon.
Exactly. The report suggests it might actually be designed by Abelcom, a company controlled by the CEO's brother.
And partially owned by the CEO and his wife.
And they haven't disclosed any of this to investors.
Nope.
So without that transparency, it's impossible to know if these related party transactions are legitimate.
Right.
Or if they're designed to benefit the CEO and his family at the expense of other shareholders.
It's a big question mark.
It is.
Hanging over the whole thing.
So what does all this mean for investors who are considering Supermicro?
Well, it means there's a lot of risk involved, Supermicro's explosive growth might be built on shaky ground, and their accounting might be masking deeper issues.
Yeah.
It's essential for potential investors to look beyond the hype and carefully consider these red flags before making any decisions.
So we've uncovered potential accounting manipulation,
Right.
questionable family deals,
Yes.
sanctions evasion, partnerships with companies linked to human rights abuses,
Yep.
and a growing list of dissatisfied customers.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to digest. What's the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think the key takeaway here is that Supermicro is a company operating in a high-growth, high-stakes industry. They've achieved remarkable success, but they also have a history of ethical lapses and questionable business practices. And the evidence presented in this report raises serious concerns about their commitment to transparency, accountability, and responsible business conduct.
This deep dive has certainly been eye-opening. What should our listeners be thinking about as they process all this information?
Well, I think it's important to remember that this isn't just about numbers on a balance sheet. It's about the values and principles we want to see reflected in the companies that we support and the technologies that are shaping our future.
AI has incredible potential.
It does.
But it needs to be developed and deployed responsibly.
Responsibly and ethically.
We need to hold companies like Supermicro accountable for their actions, demand more transparency, ethical behavior, and a commitment to the greater good.
Couldn't agree more.
This has been a wild ride.
It has.
And it's clear that the Supermicro story is far from over.
Oh, we'll be keeping an eye on it, that's for sure.
We will.
It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and stay curious out there.